You're listening to Season 14 of the Virtual Tailgate, a media bullcrap production covering college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference, in a conference called the ACC, where the name doesn't really mean Atlantic. So I'm Andrew, and we're going to get into that. But joining me, as always, is David.
During his imprisonment, Edmond Dantes, the title character of Alexander Dumas's classic novel, The Count of Monte Cristo, is referred to by a numerical alias. He's called 34.
Can we get a fact check on that?
It's going to be a fun season, boys.
Also joining me tonight, we've got Jeff.
You know, Andrew already kind of foreshadowed this, but this is going to be a crazy season in the ACC. We are going to go all the way from South Beach to the shores of Southern not Southern California, not quite so. We're going to go to the shores of California, though. We're going to go from South Beach to California. We're going to go up towards Fenway. We're going to go to that place in Syracuse that has no AC, that's almost like Canada, and we're going to all call it the Atlantic Coast Conference here, gentlemen. That's right. We're still the Atlantic Coast Conference. We can agree on two things about this upcoming season that we have coming up. One is that there is one and only one piece of footwear that will take you all the way from the sunny beaches of Miami to the sunny beaches of California, and that is none other than the Tecovas work boots. And that by the time this season is over with, we will. The one word that I think we can agree will describe it is weird.
I like how they just neglected like the Gulf of Mexico with the Southern Methodist down there by that coast there, Jeff. But
I like how the one person who supposedly has media training on this podcast starts talking before he gets introduced.
Oh,
Can we mute his mic? Can we mute his mic from now on?
That's Jared.
well, first of all, thank you, and I apologize, but we can't forget our friends, our new brothers down in Texas that have joined our conference too. We can't just skip over them.
Jared,
Midwest.
Isn't Florida State a lot closer to the Gulf of Mexico than Dallas?
Well, it depends on who you ask for geography. Some say yes, some say no.
Have you seen the state of Texas, Jared?
And by the way, that wasn't it. Although that would work. I have one written up ready to go here. Long story short, this year the virtual tailgate is going to give out PSA that I will read out to you, the listener, instead of me doing some other rambling crap you just heard earlier tonight that I just did mostly. So, without further ado, I would like to go ahead and read our first PSA here on the virtual tailgate. So, here we go. The following parody service announcement is from the virtual tailgate. So, it happened. You're in a public space and need to go to the bathroom. You arrive at your facility and see that there's no toilet paper. What do you do now? Simple. Go ahead and barehand back there like you're searching for a chocolate bar certified by Willy Wonka himself. And don't be shy to use the sink to clean yourself up. Both your hands and your area south of the border will be thankful for it. And you'll be glad you did.
And you're part of the problem.
You're not getting the music for that one.
I am really disappointed. I thought he was going to direct.
There we go. Thank you.
I thought he was going to direct the listeners to another one of our great podcasts.
You're
in
right.
the archives.
Yeah,
it is. All right, let's virtual tailgate at mediabullcrap.com. Jeff, things have changed recently.
Things have changed, yes. Things have changed, and things are weird, shall we say. We've got 3 new entrants into the ACC this season. That brings the grand spanking total up to 17. 17 teams. Basically, certainly on most of them are on coast. Not all of them are on coast technically, including one of the new entrants. But we are all over the place now. despite the ACC moniker. We welcome from the state of California. We have got Cal and Stanford. Cal comes in. Justin Wilcox is their head coach, 8th season, 6-7, 20 record in 2023. He's got a 36-43 overall record. And to bring along with that, the reason why we brought him in is he had never had a winning record in the Pac-12, so that bodes pretty well for some of the bottom feeders of the ACC. I think that's what got them in. But they did lose the Independence Bowl to Texas Tech last year, and he's overall 1-2 in bowl games. So we're looking for some easy wins, bringing in some conference wins. I think that's the strategy behind the Cal edition. Also coming from California, we got the Stanford Cardinal, no S. The head coach of the Stanford Cardinal is Troy Taylor in his second season, 3-9 in 2023. Was previously successful at Sacramento State, but Sacramento State is not the competition of the ACC. And also joining the ACC this season as our geographically challenged co-podcaster here mentioned, the Mustangs of Southern Methodist got Rhett Lashley is in his third season, 11-3. Last season, 18-9 overall. Ended 2023 number 22 in the AP. This is definitely a team that adds a little bit of pop to the ACC to go along with some of the mainstays of Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville, who have been kind of up there the last few seasons. They did lose the Fenway Bowl last year to Boston College, oddly enough, and he's 0-2 in his bowl games thus far. So the success in the regular season has not translated to postseason success for the Mustangs under Lashley head coach. But those are the three additions to the rotation here. Really mixes it up and unbalances the schedule for the ACC as we'll probably talk about today and throughout the season, as some teams definitely have, shall we say, easier routes to 8 and 9 wins, even 10 wins than other teams do. But nevertheless, it's going to be a crazy season coming up.
Great thing about SMU, they were very early adopters of NIL funding.
You could say they were doing it before it was cool. Or legal.
Oh man! Well, let's dive in and take a big picture look at this new season. We're gonna do this a little bit different order than usual because we're gonna start kind of at the bottom of our list here, fellas. I'm interested to know from your research and wisdom a couple teams that will have a chance to be dark horse contenders in the ACC this season, and maybe a team that is poised to take a step back. Jared, kick us off.
Well, pretty much, I am so sorry. I was not paying attention. I was looking at my phone on something else. I'm sorry. I had an email come through.
Okay. Well, we're down to three. It's a three-man pod from now on.
The old I had an email come through. Heard that one a few times.
Jeez. All right, Andrew, give us a dark horse team and a team that might take a step back.
Well, I don't know if it's just because my preseason sheet had them potentially going to the championship by the way that I randomly filled it out, or because the name Rhett is just kind of cool. But I'm going with SMU as a dark horse team here. Mostly exactly what you said, David. SMU knows how to attract talent, let's say, and it's taken them almost 40 years to recover from how good they were at attracting talent previously. But I think it's going to work out pretty well for going forward. So definitely viewing them as a team that could show up. I really don't know if it really counts as a dark horse, considering we know that they showed up, said, "Don't give us any money, we're going to kick your butts," and I think they are. But yeah, so that's my prediction for a team that could be surprising.
That is a baller move from SMU.
Yes, we've got oil money. It's fine.
Yeah.
Tell us who's going to take a step back this year, Andrew.
Well, I also breaking outside of the norm, going with newbie teams. Cal was 6-7 in a Pac-12 that they were a middle of the road school. I think that they're going to have a little bit harder time finding that same level of success coming to the ACC. Now, season to season, that's going to vary, of course, widely because we have this these wildly unbalanced schedules. But I think it's there's a lot that says to me that Cal has been very inconsistent and not up to par, even in the Pac-12, which has historically struggled to get its recognition for Power 5 for those postseason accolades, and so it's going to be a rough time for them going forward.
I feel like, Andrew, this shows a lot of growth on this podcast over the years, that you've chosen two of the new teams for these early preseason kind of looks here. Because if you'll recall, when Pittsburgh and Syracuse joined the league, it took us about 6 seasons to even figure out who they were.
This is true. I spend a good bit of time trying to, I was like, there are 3 new teams. I have to know who they are. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, now, Jared, awake right now?
I am. I'm ready to go.
It would make a lot of sense for you to jump in now because you kind of partly agree with Andrew, but I don't know if do you know where we are in the show or where you are or what?
Well, we kind of skipped, I thought, the championship game participants.
Yeah, that was why I said we're going to skip down. That was part of my introduction.
Yeah. He did say that. He did say that.
David, you're a pastor. People tune out what you're saying anyway half the time anyway. So, anyways, to your request, though, I picked SMU as well as a dark horse team. They had a great season last year before jumping to the ACC, albeit with the loss to Boston College in their bowl game. But they have a lot of talent. As Andrew was saying, there is money to be spent with the NIL stuff. They go ahead and get the top talent to come play for SMU. It is not an issue. And with them coming to, honestly, probably a conference that's even probably on par to what they are leaving, if not, depending on who they play, even better fitted for SMU because they're going to beat up on teams, they can really make a run at a possible, dare I say, conference championship game in their first year. It's not out of the realm of possibility here for the Mustangs. Team that
I was not expecting an AAC is better than the ACC take tonight.
Oh, boy, have you not been watching ACC football?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. If you were surprised by that, you haven't been watching ACC football for the last decade.
All I know is that ACC network gig is going up in smokes as we speak.
Yeah. Well, team that's going to definitely after this one, team that's going to take a step back. You know it. I got the Canes. Listen, I know people are so excited about this team. They're going to win 9 games. They're going to win 10 games. Hell, they may even go for the conference championship and a college football playoff. Pump the brakes. This is the Miami Hurricanes, a team with a lot of talent and no substance. They are just a team that goes out there, plays for the name on the back, and not for the team on the front. They are only focused on themselves for most of these players, and for their next NIL deal, either to go to another university or go to the NFL draft. But it's never really for the team that's on the front of their jersey. It hasn't been that way for 20 years, and it's not going to be like that for the next 20 with how the current college football program and system is.
Wow.
All right.
That was...
Wait, also, point of order, Miami's been bad for years. How are they going to take a step further back from that?
Because everyone's hyping them up. Again, they need to understand.
I know, but what I'm saying is they're going to be exactly the same team.
Just let him keep going. He gets on a roll. He's confused a step back with being overrated, which is a very different question. There's no hope.
Okay,
I'm just glad he's
understood.
Literally on the same page as us.
This is fair. You're also very right about that.
All right, Jeff. I know that you've got some wisdom here, and you're going to stick with some traditional ACC powers, right?
Well, I'll sit there and I'll say that I can agree to the second part of that statement. Not sure I can offer on the former, but for my breakout team, kind of a consensus pick when you read a lot of the projections that are hyped about the ACC this year. I'm taking Virginia Tech to take a breakout, to be a breakout team, take a step forward. Now, 7 wins last year. You'd say it takes, how do you have a breakout team? I think this is a team that could easily challenge between the schedule and some improvement and really consistency on that team. Bringing back I think around 17 or 18 players between the offense and defensive side of the ball last year. So a lot of consistency certainly helps when you're a team that finishes with a decent record that you can build on that going into the next season, as opposed to bringing in a lot of new players. So I think that they've got a lot of good building blocks, unlike a lot of teams in the ACC between the NFL, out of eligibility, the transfer portal. Not a lot of consistency on a lot of these teams, a lot of new faces, a lot of chemistry that has to be developed. This Virginia Tech team shouldn't have that problem, and they've got some solid players coming back. So I think they I'm not going to go as far as the SMU challenge for the ACC. I think they might be just a little bit of a step below that, but certainly I think they could make some noise this season. As far as a team that could take a step back, I go with the Duke Blue Devils. I mean, they kind of overachieved a little bit last year. Ended up 8-5. Had a pretty good record. Then as we know, Mike Elko went off to greener pastures. Bring in Manny Diaz, who's trying to resurrect his ACC coaching career. I just think there's going to be they've kind of made their way through just barely the last few years. Don't quite have the talent on that team that they may have had a few years ago. So I think Manny Diaz has a little bit of a rebuild effort in front of him, and certainly that 8-5 record, that bowl eligibility. I'm not quite sure they're even bowl eligible this year. Some people think that they could challenge for a bowl with him in their first season. I'm suspect on that. I think they're more of a 4 or 5 win team when all is said and done. So I think the Blue Devils take a little bit of a step back this season.
I like both of those a lot. I think the Hokies just bringing back so many weapons on both sides of the ball. Brent Pryce, third year there, like they are just looking like they are poised to take a step forward. Duke with the new coaching staff, some questions on the roster there. You got to think that this may be a grind to get to 6 wins. I like those picks a lot. For my part, I'm going with the dark horse kind of breakout team, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. If you look at the second half of last season, they were just on fire. This is a team that under head coach Brent Key seemed to be moving in the right direction. Quarterback Haynes King, super exciting, can get things done. I think the Yellow Jackets are gonna knock some folks off and make some noise this season. And then my team that can take a step back, I'm stunned every time I look at preseason rankings in the ACC at how high everyone still is on the Clemson Tigers. I just don't see it. This is a team that really, really struggled. I think they went 4-4 in the conference the season ago. Lost a lot of football games and still are holding steadfast to this refusal to play in the transfer portal. I think this is the season where that really hits them hard. They take another step back and have to revisit this philosophy they've got going.
David.
All right.
Sure, you've never made any bad decisions.
Well, the thing, Dabo, is it's not just one bad decision here. It's like every day that you don't take a look at the portal, it's a new bad decision. I don't know. Maybe it'll work for him. Let's see. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look kind of together at our preseason predictions for the James Conner Offensive Player of the Year Award, the Luke Kuechly Defensive Player of the Year Award, and then the most senseless preseason award in history, the Brown Saban Coach of the Year honor. So, Jeff, I'm going to ask you to kick us off here. Just tell us give us your individual awards.
Yeah, so for my James Conner Offensive Player of the Year, I've got a kind of piggybacking off of your dark horse breakout. I'm going to go a little bit of a flyer, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. I'm going with Haynes King, the quarterback at Georgia Tech. Made a lot of noise last year in his first season transferring in, and we collectively, your pick, and I think in general we think that team could take a step forward, puts up a lot of yards on the ground and through the air. So I think he's got an outside shot. Probably won't be at the top of the ACC from a record standpoint, but might be able to make enough noise. For my Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going with Virginia Tech's Antoine Powell-Ryland Jr. Returning defensive lineman, had 9.5 sacks last year, 40 tackles, 14.5 for loss. As we talked about, bringing back so much of that defense. Just feels like that's a team that when you've got that much talent in an individual player, you're primed to build off of that in the next season. So I think he's a player that could may not, in his position, he's not going to end up with the number of tackles or anything like that, but could certainly make a lot of noise and disrupt. Be one of those guys that disrupts plays every single down, even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet. And for my coach of the year, maybe a little bit of a flyer because they were good last year, but I'm going with Jeff Brom. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later. I think he's poised to take the Louisville Cardinals to the next step and finish the job, and I think he'll end up getting the coach of the year honors to go along with it.
All right, very good. Andrew, what have you got?
All right, well, going to kick it off on the offensive player of the year side. Kyle McCord, transfer from Ohio State. He had 3,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions in that 11-1 season for Ohio State. He went into the transfer portal before the Bowl last year after Ryan Day declined to commit to him as the starting quarterback going forward. He's showing up at Syracuse, and I get the feeling that he's going to be he could be one of those guys who becomes offensive player of the year on a team that ultimately doesn't perform the way that it should. I feel like he could give us another 3,000 yard season, if not 3,500, 4,000, throw a lot of touchdowns, and Syracuse could just have a terrible defense, and they just get boat raced in a lot of games. He may also get sacked every other play and just have terrible numbers. Who knows? But certainly a hyped up transfer coming out, one of the highest rated transfers coming into the ACC this year. At Defensive Player of the Year, I've got Barrett Carter, linebacker for Clemson. He was a quarterfinalist selection for the Lott Impact Trophy last year. He had a really high number of tackles and a few tackles for loss, a few sacks. Looks like a guy who's poised to continue to step forward, continue to drive that Clemson defense, which no matter what you may think about how Clemson's going to play overall in the season, there's nothing that says that their defense is going to be anything less than stellar. We know that's what Dabo coaches up every year. So seeing a Defensive Player of the Year come out of the Clemson defensive backfield just would not be surprising at all.
And way too early pick for Coach of the Year.
Have you guys heard of Teapot?
I'm going to have to go with O on that one.
Okay. Bill O'Brien is going to be the coach of Boston College. And when I went to look up, because you got to do a little bit of your cross-referencing of sources here, you look up Bill O'Brien on Wikipedia, and it says immediately Bill O'Brien nicknamed the Teapot, and goes on to tell you about his career. Well, apparently, the Teapot is a nickname that was given to him by Tom Brady and company while he was at the Patriots because of his ability to boil over and yell at people in the locker room. And apparently Brady and someone else thought it would be hilarious to purchase a teapot that inscribed some of his best rants onto. And so apparently there are multiple teapots that are in existence with rants that are not only by him but by a great number of other people from that period of time of the Patriots. It may be the most endearing thing I've ever heard about Tom Brady because that Boston connection is going to drive me away immediately. But yeah, so Teapot O'Brien.
You mean Tampa Bay Buccaneer legend, Tom Brady?
You're right. Yes. Teapot O'Brien is my pick because I think that Boston College is finally back to they're like the ACC is going to give him the awards because Boston College is finally back to that memeable state of it's as good as guys being dudes. Well, maybe not, but at least it's something. It's
So what do you think? 1.5 weeks is the over-under until the teapot gets on the soundboard for us?
If I could find something of his, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Jared, have you sobered up?
I have, yeah.
All right. Do you know we're talking about football, Atlantic
Yes.
Coast Conference. Was wondering if you had any ideas about guys who might have good seasons or coaches who might really break through this year.
Well, I think this James Conner, Luke Kuechly guy seemed pretty
That
good.
does not sound sober, my friend.
I can't blame you on that one. In all seriousness, Kyron Drones, the quarterback for Virginia Tech, I think could have a very good year. I think he could be in consideration for ACC Player of the Year, especially if the Hokies take that next step. I think that's a name that's very common going around for the ACC, and I think it's one I will mention here and say it would not surprise me if he somehow gets the accolades. And on the defensive side, I got Ashton Gillott, the defensive tackle from Louisville. His stats have improved each year since he started playing in 2021. Just getting a few sacks in 21. 22, he got 6 sacks. 2023, 23 solo tackles, 45 total. In 11 sacks. So pretty much his production each of the past year has essentially doubled. Now, of course, I'm not saying he's going to get 22 sacks this year, but this is a man that can really be disruptive on the defensive line. And if Louisville wants to be the team that can win the ACC title game, he has to play big in the big moments and make sure he causes the disruption on the offensive side and offensive line, the ball. For Coach of the Year, I got Fran Brown, the new coach for Syracuse. I know he just started. He has never been the head coach of a collegiate football game, but as we talked about before the podcast, he was a former recruiter down at Georgia. If y'all don't know, Georgia won a national championship recently. They're not last year, but pretty recently. Very good team.
People are saying it was all about Fran Brown.
Yeah, well, you know.
You know what? It's true. When you bring in a coach that was on a championship-winning staff, you can't go wrong.
But
right, Wazoo saying?
But the thing is, he's bringing along this talent. You know, he's got the quarterback from Ohio State in Kyle McCord. He's got the Texas A&M defensive lineman Fidel Diggs. These are guys that started at the previous universities or were playing significant time, and he's got them to come over to Syracuse. And there's no wait period anymore in the college football game. Once you transfer over, you can start playing. The fact is, it would not surprise me if somehow Syracuse got 8 wins, and maybe at the end of the season,
maybe 11.
Yeah. Well, not that many, I don't think. Boy, I tell you though, right now, if that does happen, I really need to start just going with my gut more often than going back on revisionist history. But I just wouldn't be surprised if Syracuse somehow was an 8-win team, and at the end of the day, go, well, I sure as hell didn't expect that, and give it to him for the year as the coach of the year.
Well, Jared, I appreciate the absolute audacity of your response there. I ask you, what's your prediction of how this season's going to go? And without missing a beat, you tell me, oh, yeah, my team's quarterback going to be the best in the world, MVP, Heisman Trophy. That was amazing. Amazing audacity.
Did I say Heisman Trophy? That's
Heisman what I heard. I think we all heard it, Jared.
Well, David, it's funny you mentioned that. Can you start with your defensive player of the year?
I will. So I think this year's Luke Kuechly Defensive Player of the Year honors are going to go to Jonas Sankar as University of Virginia safety. Sankar was third in the ACC. This is totally different, Jared. It's not even close to the same. He was third in the ACC last season with 107 tackles. And that number is only going to go up this season. As you will recall, this award is primarily given to the guy who plays on a lousy team and tackles everybody. And I promise you, the ball is going to be in the secondary a lot against this Virginia defense this season. Sankar may break the all-time record for most tackles. He may be the only guy on the defense that can tackle someone, for all we know. So Jonas
After
Sankar.
all these years of me thinking that y'all aren't listening, David beat me in my own game. He picked You're right, man. I don't know that he's ever going to get to Kuechly levels, but man, you're right.
He's poised for a breakout Kuechly season here. All right, Offensive Player of the Year. I'm going to go Cam Ward. So we talked about this kind of being the year of the transfer in the ACC, and there's no bigger prize than Cam Ward. He's the quarterback, came in from Washington State, came in from an incarnate word via Washington State, and he is now the signal caller for the U. And if Miami really can be back this season, it's going to be on the shoulders of Cam Ward. And so it's going to be exciting to see what he does there. If this goes well, if this experiment plays out the way Hurricanes fans are hoping, he's got a good shot at winning Offensive Player of the Year. And then for me, my preseason Coach of the Year, I really, as much as it pains me to say it, I think the Hokies are poised for a great season. Brent Pry has, I think the rebuild might be just about complete down there, and he's done it way ahead of schedule. They're bringing back so much talent. I think this is a year where you see them take a really good step forward. And if they do, when they do, he'll be our Coach of the Year when all the dust settles this season. All right, guys. Now that brings us to the most important part of our discussion. It doesn't look like it's super exciting here. It looks to me like all four of us believe that Mike Norvell is going to lead his Seminoles of Florida State back into the ACC championship game in Charlotte.
That's
at the end
a bit
of
of
the
a
season.
sore spot there, David.
I know. I apologize. Hey, here's what I promise you. If they win the conference this year, I think they're going to get into the playoff this time around. No matter who the quarterback is. We've all got FSU playing for the ACC title, but we've all got them playing against different teams. I'll show my hand. I just sort of shared that I think the Hokies are a team to watch this season. I've got Virginia Tech making it to Charlotte to take on the Seminoles. What do you guys have? Who else might go up against Florida State this year? Jump in.
Clemson, because you just love that team so much, David. I thought I'll just throw them in there. I got Clemson making it against Florida State for an old-fashioned beatdown or rivalry game, whatever you want to call it. And I do have Florida State winning at the end of the day, though.
Okay, that's a spoiler. I was going to ask that later. Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it.
I just ruined your night.
Cool, man.
I technically have 4 teams in my preseason pick that ended up at 7-1, and then who knows about those non-conference games, but so I could have picked NC State, I could have picked Virginia Tech, but I went with SMU as my pick. As you heard in my dark horse, I thought that they've got this to break out, and I think that they're already good enough that if they break out, that means that they're there so that we can have a good old 3-letter acronym battle in the championship.
Yeah, in my matchup, I've got really a rematch, but it all ends up in the same place we were last year. I've got Louisville back there. I think got Jeff Brom as my Coach of the Year. I think that's a defense that's returning a lot of stars from last year. That was a pretty good defense and some good transfer skill positions on the offensive side. So I think Louisville has every potential to be right back there again this year.
You know, it's kind of interesting. We've all got these different teams going up against Florida State there. None of us picked NC State as the competitor in Charlotte, although I think we're going to see in a little while, we've got the Wolfpack very, very high on our power rankings. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and whether they can continue to take a step forward under the leadership of Dave Dorn there in Raleigh.
I'm going to blame that on Jared. Whenever I look at the top 5, the rest of us all picked a team from the top 5, and Jared didn't.
It's not the first or last time that he really.
You kind of beat me to it though, David, because I was going through just looking at who else was up there, and NC State is really, to your point, is that team that we didn't even hit on them. I don't even think anywhere in any of our individual awards, Coach of the Year awards. I mean, really, they're nowhere there, but they're just. Dave Dorn is just he's really become old reliable at NC State. Like, I think 8 wins in 6 of the last 7 seasons. So, don't sleep on the Wolfpack for sure.
And back to me picking Clemson. I had them beating Louisville in our preseason pick prediction. So was I supposed to just ignore that?
Yes.
David,
Jared, just try not to be wrong so often.
How about you try not to be so wrong so often, David?
Jared.
Oh man, look at that
Jared.
comeback!
Okay, you're
I
part of
know
the
you.
problem.
I know you are. What am I?
Also, Jared.
Oh, you get your butt beat.
Yeah.
All right, so we know that Jared believes that the Seminoles are the ACC champions. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think the fact that we can't figure out who the other team is means that the Seminoles are going to win.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And also, I've got the Hokies going up against them, and I cannot afford for Virginia Tech to win that game. So, give me the Seminoles.
Yeah. So at the risk of being the outlier here, which probably means I'll be wrong. I've got the Cardinals and Jeff Brom finishing the job this year and going up against the Seminoles and actually taking home the ACC championship. It's I think that this is a team that's been building, maybe a little bit of up and down, but has really been building itself into a consistent player under the under the last couple of coaches for the most of the seasons. Definitely in his first season last year took some big strides, and I think there's just a lot of turnover at Florida State, like there are with a lot of teams. I think they've got a lot of holes to fill. We haven't really talked about it much yet. It'll be interesting, and I'm sure we'll be keeping a close eye during the season on how he plays and also on getting lessons on how to pronounce his last name from Andrew. But DJ, was it Ungalele? Did I get it?
Uwe Ungalele.
Uwe Ungalele. All right, I missed a couple of syllables. Is back in the ACC. You might remember a couple of seasons ago he was the quarterback, heir apparent to Trevor Lawrence, I believe, at that time. At Clemson, did not pan out. Ended up on the West Coast and is now back in the ACC at Florida State. So we'll definitely be looking close. But I think that this Louisville season, I think they've been building to this with a lot of the talent they've got, returning a lot of players. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a flyer and pick the Cardinals to bring home the hardware this year.
All right, guys, I appreciate your flexibility and walking us through that a little bit differently. I think these picks sound really brilliant here in week 0. I've got a feeling when we get to the midway point of the season, and especially when we look back on this campaign, we're going to look like fools for the 14th straight year.
As is tradition.
That is tradition right there. So now we've moved on here to the power rankings, the preseason power rankings, and we're going to do things a little bit differently here on season 14, the virtual tailgate.
Nobody wants to listen to 17 teams every week.
Nailed it. So instead, we're going to give you the top 5 teams that are a consensus amongst us 4, and the bottom 3 teams amongst us. So top 5, bottom 3. Top 5, bottom 3. Without further ado, here are the top 5.
Hold on. Can you explain? It's the top
5. Yeah. So,
all right.
Like the 5 fingers
right.
and thumb on your hand.
No, not that finger. No.
And then the bottom 3, you close your thumb and your pinky, you got 3 left. So that. We good? Okay. I think we got this.
Change is hard, guys. Change is hard.
It is. Yeah, I mean, shit. Amen, brother. Number 5. We have. Am I just going through the whole list? I guess.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Well, no, you're not going through the whole list. The whole purpose is to only do the top 5.
If 8 teams is too many for you, you can tap out. You can ask somebody else to do the bottom 3.
I mean, number 5, Virginia Tech, the Hokies, 7-6, 5-3 last year. Military Bowl win over Tulane to end their season. We have them as a group, the 5th best team in the ACC this year so far. Number 4, preseason rankings. SMU, the newcomer, 11-3, 8-0 in their old conference, the AAC, with the loss to Boston College. As someone noted here, it was a totally unfair game as it was a home game for Boston College playing at Fenway Park. Noted. Number 3, Louisville, 10-4, 7-1, lost the ACC championship game to Florida State last year, and then the Holiday Bowl to USC. Number 2, NC State, the Wolfpack, 9-4, 6-2 last year. They lost, of course, that heartbreaking Pop-Tart Bowl to Kansas State. They did not get to consume the Pop-Tart that came out of that toaster. It was quite a scene. I won't lie, guys. I remember watching that live. I needed a diaper for my face because I was pissing tears down my face, dude. So emotional. Number 1, Florida State. No surprise, they're the Seminoles, 13-1. Of course, they lost their game against Georgia. Did not lose the game in the conference last year, 8-0, 13-1 overall. It would be the Seminoles conference to lose until they move on to greener pastures to either the SEC, Big Ten, or well, I guess we shouldn't be saying that because that's nothing's come of that. But yeah, like Clemson, they're suing the conference, so they're trying to get out. All right, bottom 3, 15th team out of 17. We have the Pitt Panthers. Why, you may ask? Well, they were 3-9 last year, 2-6 in the conference, and they did not exactly give us any hope that they actually improved upon that with their recruiting or their coaching or really anything in between. Number 16, I thought this was a typo when I first saw this list, but I see number 17, and I think it is justified. We have the Cavaliers at 16, same record as the Pitt Panthers. And it's going to be a make-or-break year for Tony Elliott here, it sounds like. I think if he does not show some improvement, it could be curtains for his coaching career at Charlottesville. And last but not least, newcomer, number 17.
Actually, they are least also.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, Stanford, listen, we call you the Cardinal, and, welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. This whatever the hell you want to call this conference. 3-9, 2-7, and the old Pac-12, may it rest in power, King. You will always be missed. If you can bring anything, Stanford, if you can be competitive, that'd be great. If you want to go ahead and bring some of those Pac-12 shenanigans that you have over there, late night Pac action, then I think you'll be just fine here. Because the only thing I'm looking forward to as a Hokie fan is that 10:30 kickoff in week, I think, 8 that the Hokies have to play. I'm looking forward to that because that gives me a reason to stay up and drink heavily, and my wife can't yell at me at that. So, very excited.
We have to have an in-episode correction here. Pitt is only showing up as number 15 because Jared voted for them twice. And so my sheet is summing. Also, you know who Jared left out completely of his ranking and is also boosting their ranking? NC State.
Oh God, Jared!
Hey, Jared,
no!
Jared, what's your job title?
Oh my God! Actually, it's quality assurance.
I knew it!
Well, we've got the title of tonight's episode.
Quality assurance. Because you're not going to put NC State at 10th, are you?
I just did. I mean, but yeah, you're right. That would make no. God.
It at least it. I was like, no. Wake should be the number 15 team. I mean, granted, Wake and Pitt both bad last year, but.
Oh. Wow.
All right.
We have no credibility left, man.
I can't believe
we didn't have much to begin with.
It's so freaking hard when there's 17 godforsaken teams in this conference now.
The rest of us managed to do it.
You did. You're absolutely right.
25% of our contributors screwed this up.
I can work on actually writing you a QA script. 75% of us could
figure it out.
Wow. Jared, it's possible that I may have flubbed it as well. It would appear that somehow I don't have Miami in anymore. I don't even know which team I'm duplicating, but I definitely don't have Miami in there. How is this possible?
Well, that's okay. You saw how I talked about Miami earlier. They don't deserve to be in the conference anyway. So,
David, let me just say, like that this is one of those days I'm glad to be in your company. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
With that being said, our top 5, bottom 3 has no merit. Our previous so far probably has no merit, and we will just pretend this podcast tonight just never happened. You know,
after we sorted all that out, just so that everyone at home knows, 5-1, Virginia Tech, SMU, NC State, Louisville, Florida State. It looks like we had the 2-3 swap. Pitt is out of the doghouse, although probably not really. Narduzzi is certainly up there in the hot seat. But Wake now slides into that 15 slot. The most disappointing thing about this, really, though, guys, is that the homer David put Virginia in the 15 spot, which did the numbers just enough to actually separate. I really think it would have been nice if Stanford and Virginia were tied for the bottom of the barrel, but didn't quite work out that way. So
that's what happens when you do your homework.
Or something like that. All right, well, we can't mess this last part up because we've got our it's far too manual to be messed up. The games of the week. We're just gonna go straight in order here and how we're gonna get to watch them this weekend. Week 0, my goodness, making millions and millions of football fans learn what computer-based counting is like right here. We've got
just 2 ACC games in week 0. I mean,
we get we've got
sounds suspiciously like week 1, you know.
Yeah, I know. It was easier. It was easier for the code monkeys at ESPN to make it week 0, though. That's really was. So we've got Florida State at and Georgia Tech playing against each other in Dublin. And somehow we don't actually have the names of the teams listed here. Thankfully, I remember, but this is a game that has an 11.5 point spread. Pretty decent money line, not the best, but a decent enough money line. Plus 365 if you decide to go after Florida State. I'm just taking the kind of the lazy pick here, which is FSU covering the spread. Strikes me that if you can run up the score while you're on an international stage, why not do it? So I'll just go after the standard spread. And Jared, what you got?
Well, I think the first games are always some ones that you really don't know how good or bad a team is because it's just the rust and getting the cobwebs out from practice and the previous season and all that crap. So, and traveling across the ocean, it's really going to mess up, I think, both teams at the end of the day. I think actually it's going to be a low-scoring game. I kind of have a hunch. Like, it's going to only be about 30 total points, maybe 35. But that being said, that's
you're not allowed to pick the over/under. I know. You're pushing hard.
I know. I really would choose the under, by the way, if I could. But with that being said, I think the score range is just going to be under 11 in the hook. I think Georgia Tech does cover. I think it's going to be a 10-point game at the end of the day.
All right, Jeff.
Yeah, for this one, early in the season, it's tempting to take the spread. Obviously, the bigger payoff compared to the money line payoff. This one, just Florida State. We think we know what they've got, but they are replacing their quarterback. It's a lot of not a lot of returning starters on either side of the ball. We've just talked a lot in this episode about how high we are on Georgia Tech coming into this season, and the optimism that they have coming into the season. 11.5. This is one of those games I don't have a great feel for it. I could see this being a game that Florida State's still working the cobwebs out. Georgia Tech is trying to make a statement in the week 0 with really having a lot of focus on them. I mean, there's not a lot of games going on and not a lot of high profile games, so it's really if I'm down there, coaching that team up, I'm making that statement to them to say this is an opportunity to make a statement without a lot of big games. So this is a game I could see Florida State pulling out, but being closer than the 11.5 would otherwise say. So I'm just going with FSU in the money line here.
Well,
do I remember that Jeff's nickname was Moneyline last year? I feel like
He's
it
a very,
was.
very courageous gambler.
David.
Well, I'm in kind of a pickle here because my pick is the same as Jared's, but I think Jeff's logic is actually the far better reason why I got there. I think there's a little bit of a hangover for Florida State. I mean, last season, you all recall, did not end the way they had hoped it would. There are some changes down there in Tallahassee. Most importantly, of course, at the quarterback position. Easy to see some cobwebs needing to get knocked off here. You're traveling across an ocean. It's week 0 is always a strange time anyway. This will be especially strange, and so that makes me think the game may be closer than anticipated. Jared's thing about the over, like he would set an over under at 30 in this game, is insane to me. So the actual over under started at 51.5. And has already been bet up to 55 in the hook at the time of recording. Georgia Tech may have the worst defense in the ACC. There are going to be points scored in this game. So I don't know. Whatever he was drinking earlier, he really picked it up. But the conclusion is the same. I think Georgia Tech keeps this close enough to cover the spread. But it's going to be because their offense manages to keep up with Florida State for long enough.
Jared, do we expect to see screenshot evidence of you slamming the under on this game for real?
The only thing I'll be slamming is some Guinness beers and some Reuben.
Nope. Time to move on. Time to keep moving the show along.
All right. Anyhow, but still, we're holding you to that. SMU at Nevada is our other game for this week. So we have this out-of-conference matchup that we really wouldn't have been talking about last year, and it's very hard to talk about this year because we don't know anything about SMU, and we know nothing about all the teams that they would play out in the West either. So, fun times. We do know that this is a 21.5-point spread with money lines in the triple digits. So, this doesn't look like there's much conversation to be had on this one. I keep seeing SMU spread everywhere, and Jared filling up the. Stop messing with my sheet, dude. I will kick you out.
Jared has been denied access to the virtual tailgate.
Anybody want to say anything about this actual game? Is it worth?
I mean, we're riding with our new comrade, the Mustangs.
Yeah. Are we riding too high, going after them to cover? This is the question.
Yes, because that means Nevada's going to cover. So it's just.
Nevada's
not very good.
Yeah,
they're not. But
and SMU puts up a lot of points. So those two things.
Let's see where the lines moved thus far. The line's already up to, but depending on the book that you're looking at, somewhere between 23 in the hook and 20 in the hook. So we're good.
You think we took that action early?
Yeah. Some books have moved the Florida State game to 13 in the hook now. So. But it's mostly staying stable.
Well, get me on the action 13.5, please.
That's not the way it works. For better or for worse, we go with the open
Eventually,
line.
that game's going to get bet up where the spread is larger than what Jared has as the over-under.
Come on.
I predict by the end of this season, Jared has just turned into like an Iowa podcast where he's thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a 6-4 shootout here. If they score double digits, I'll eat my hat."
They got to get a touchdown without getting a touchdown. They have to get the 2 safeties and a field goal like they did in that one game and won 7-3. Which, just like, God, just
classic
turn the
football
game,
score.
Turn the game off. Turn it off.
Oh. All right, fellas. Well, that is it for the virtual tailgate. You can send your questions or comments to virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
And always remember these 3 rules: never get less than 12 hours sleep.
As my script says, never make duty on your couch.
Never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body.
Stick to that, and everything else is cream cheese.
And chocolate.
So weird.